Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Bowlers Union podcast, the only podcast where you can get proper bowling chat. Joining me, as usual, is Keith. Although you're up north today, Keith, aren't you? Drinking some nice, fresh, healthy water.
Yeah, a lot cleaner. Feels a lot better.
Just quickly before we crack on with our topic, we're going to be discussing the bouncer and how it's used and stuff like that. Just wanted to ask, if you enjoy the podcast, then make sure you recommend us to friends, other bowlers, that kind of thing. Leave us reviews, and if you aren't already, make sure you're following us on our social media channels at the Bowlers Union. Right, Keith, let's start with bouncers then, mate. I know you've got a good record of utilising it and hitting batsmen on the bonks, haven't you, to be honest?
I've not done too bad. Bear in mind that it took a few years before we started practicing the bouncers. I learnt that it had to be a surprise. I didn't have the pace of you or anyone quick, so it has to be a real setup, and I've got to kind of go with the flow and just see what happens and know when the right time to utilise it is.
Like an assassin. You know what I mean?
A little bit. You strike at the right time, Chris.
Okay, cool. Well, look, let's start off with some reasons why you bowl it then. I mean, and I appreciate there's probably quite a few, but are there any you think that come to mind? Reasons why you bowl it, or as in good reasons why you bowl it?
Oh, obviously, you might have a batsman who is quite settled and sat quite comfortable on the front foot. You obviously then need to, like you've said before in chats we've had, is you need to gain some length back on the pitch to be able to get the ball to do something. So the more that they're lunging forward, the less you can actually do with the ball. So you might want to do it for that reason. Another reason is the batter might be shit scared of it, but you don't know until you do it.
That's probably the best reason, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't know until you actually do it. So I think there's got to be an element of let's just see where you're at with it, because you could find out that actually the batsman might try and take it on, but could be no good at it. And then you can set a feel for it, or they might just be no good and try and get out of the way. That then means you can then get yourself out of an over if you've been struggling, or do you know what I mean? Just can work in your favour.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Actually, it depends, I suppose, what standard potentially you're playing at, but quite often the pitch will dictate how you should use it as well. If you're fortunate enough to play on something up and down, then potentially that's going to be pretty tricky for a batsman or batter to handle, isn't it? If you utilise your short ball well in that scenario, but equally, if pitches, if you need to bowl full, do you know what I mean? Let's say you've got a real snake pit, and you've got a batter like you said that's quite proactive potentially and is trying to, I don't know, get you off your length or something. Using your short ball appropriately there is very important. But yeah, the best reason, absolutely, if you sense that someone doesn't play it well, or for some reason you've got a bit of intel that they don't play it well, then it's obviously a wicket taker in its own right, isn't it? To be honest,
yeah, it sends a message. Sorry, I was going to say it sends a message to the dressing room as well, is that you're not shy of using it. I think as well is what can put some people off who have used it. They could get dispatched the first time they use it, and they'll never bowl it again that game. And actually, it could just be that batsman's good on it. But even then, if someone's good on the short ball, it doesn't mean then you don't bowl it. You still bowl it. You've just got to pick when you do it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I've told you this before. We actually discussed this as a group. To be fair, a lot of teams that I've played with have had a discussion around bouncers at various points. More recently at Leicestershire, well, I say more recently, we're talking a few years ago now, is when Tom Smith was the bowling coach. And I can't remember it sort of exactly to the word, but he basically questioned everyone on what the downsides are of bowling a bouncer. And in his view, there weren't really any, which obviously, when you really think about it, the worst case scenario is you get hit for six, right? Let's say it's like at Ricky Ponting or whatever, for example, pulls you for six. Well, okay, maybe you then put it in the locker for a little bit, but you bowl it to the next person. Do you know what I mean? That
Mm.
kind of thing. It's actually like you find out a lot of info, don't you, when you use your short ball?
Yeah.
And actually, the threat of it being used hopefully makes your length ball more. Well, you're looking for any sort of hesitation, aren't you? Mistake from a batter. So if
Yeah.
they're thinking about your short ball, then maybe you've got a fraction more length, like you said earlier, to bowl into. I think it does depend on what type of bowler you are a little bit. I know you referenced where maybe you weren't the quickest, that you had to really be in tune with the game kind of thing and the game state or how the batter's playing. Like, can you give any examples of exact examples of that?
So this was going back a few years now. So me and you, we were playing at Sussex. It was a time when you decided that you needed to come down the slope, Chris, and bowl with the breeze.
Sorry.
But I was bowling to, I think, Ed Joyce, I think it was, and I was swinging it away from him quite nicely, and he was playing and missing a little bit, but I could see that he was so preoccupied in covering his stumps and kind of almost curtain railing a few balls. He was so worried about getting caught behind that it then occurred to me that he's so set up mentally for that pitched up ball swinging away from him that the last thing he's thinking is that this slow left arm is going to try and pin him on his head. So then I did give a bit of an effort ball and managed to catch him out quite badly, stunned him. I think the ball literally landed right in front of him. But I have to be really focused on what's going on. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about as well, is that when you've got pace, you can just let it go and people will duck it or get kind of on the glove or hit or whatever. But I don't think people who have got out and out pace really look at the small finer detail of how accurate they can be, that they are that lethal that no matter what they do, if they're accurate with that pace, it's unplayable and you're most likely going to get a wicket every other time you bowl it, I think, to batters that are a bit nervous on it.
Well, I'll tell you what, actually, and that's a good point. And I'd love us to talk about perhaps England's use of the short ball in a little bit, because I think there's a few bowlers who fit the category that you're talking about there. I tell you another one I remember that you bowled, quite really stands out actually, was we played Lancashire at Liverpool. And that was an example of, it was a proper nick-off pitch. But I remember Stephen Croft was batting and he was trying to use his feet, wasn't he, and sort of take the length away a little bit, nullify any movement by getting close to the pitch. And you bowled him a cracking bumper there and badged him, didn't you? And actually, I feel like he's a dangerous player, isn't he, to be honest, for them.
Yeah.
And he's a good competitor. And I feel like that the timing of that, not only did it unsettle him, but all of a sudden it was a case of, anyone who's watching, you can't just come out and think you can muck about. Do you know what I mean? You sort of dominated that situation, which was a brilliant example of timing kind of thing. What about for people then who are out and out pace? You just sort of said there. Do you think that they don't think about it enough?
No. I think if they were to put in the actual effort of where that ball is directed to and pinpointing where they want it, it's a whole nother level of scary. And there's certain bowlers that we faced. We've talked about Geoff Archer before, haven't we? Because he's just straight over the top, but it's almost at you, isn't it? There's no kind of way over your head really. It's kind of at you. It's horrible. I think quick bowlers could look at being accurate where you are kind of going, I'm not trying to badge you. I'm trying to literally, it sounds horrible to say this, I'm not trying to smash your cheekbone or hit you in the throat. Like, there's no room for it going anywhere else unless you duck under it. And then, even then, there's times when you can, and I don't, tell me what you think of this, is right-hander bowling to a right arm bowler bowling to a right-handed batsman.
Yeah.
people do decide to go short, it's not often that I see many right armers come round the wicket and go, I'm coming around this area here. We always seem to have it that they just stay over a lot of the time. And I think it's another kind of thing you could identify as exposing a batter more with the right field setting, which is something we probably want to talk about as well, which makes it another level of like uncomfort.
I think, you know what? That's really funny. I think it's a good point. I'm trying to think personally how that would play out. I think it depends how much of your stock ball you want to bowl in that scenario. Because I think it's fair to say if you do go round the wicket, right-hander to a right-hander, you take an LB and bowled out a little bit,
Yeah.
perhaps. So if you're only going short, if you're going like a proper, you're letting someone have it. So like England are at the moment, for example, I think that probably goes up in value. Yeah. However, if you're utilising the short ball with the all, in a more of a normal framework, and you're still looking for nick-offs and bowled LB, and you're using your short ball as a surprise, I think probably it makes sense to be over the wicket. Something I've always found interesting. So you've talked about the line there, and the height of the short ball is always, I think, a really interesting one, because what you hear a lot is get your bouncer high, right? Now,
I don't get that saying really.
Right. I'm glad you said that. Now, in my head, and I think this is one of my better balls, I don't think you get as great rewards as you should with a high bouncer. And I'm pretty sure I've said this on a different podcast, but let's assume you've got someone, you're like, right, we've got to, make sure the bouncer's over their head so they can't control it. I feel like when it's that high, good batters often get it and they'll duck it because they'll be like, instinctively they're looking at pull, but it's over their head, so they'll just duck under. If they do go for it, quite often that ball flies out the park for 6.
Yeah.
This is certainly in a red ball context. In a white ball context, it's a wide or a no ball. I feel like you get much better results when you hit batters lower and it ends up just going to mid-wicket, or it ends up going straight up and the keeper takes one, straight up. Or if they then do hit it, I'll tell you what happens. You do run the odd risk of a batter playing it really well and pulling you in front of the square. That's what you risk.
But realistically, like you said with Tom Smith's thing there, it's never a bad thing. Worst thing is, all right, you get hit for 6. Okay. Thing is, though, with bowling, unlike batting, is you get another go. You make a mistake with the ball, you come back and you bowl again. You just learn from that mistake. You can learn that actually he could have top edged it for 6. Doesn't mean he's good in it. You know what I mean? Like anything can happen. So I think the main thing is don't go too high. I'd rather you get pulled off. Someone's pulling you off the kind of chest to head than it being up above the head and they just leave it or let it go. And even if they do take it on, that's because they're really compulsive, which I think is still a bit too high. But also I feel like it's a wasted delivery. I don't want to waste any deliveries. If I'm not getting the wicket, I want to be able to at least know that I've hit you and hurt you maybe, or you've played it. I don't want to waste the ball way above your head, because the only time I want the ball to go through to the keeper is if it's a play and miss. I don't want it to be a bounce that's well over your head and you're just like, well, that's okay. Yeah, I've run 16.4 meters to get to the crease, Chris. I don't want to waste that delivery. Do you know what I mean?
This is super interesting because actually there's two like caveats to that, or assumptions. The only caveat to that is if you are generally trying to hide the ball. If you're genuinely for example, we played Glamorgan a couple of years ago, right? And North East got 400. Okay, so he's seeing it pretty well in that scenario. And if it's ball 5 or 6 of an over, maybe you are trying to hide one over his head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like genuinely. So in that scenario, what we're saying here isn't necessarily true. But the bloke's on 400 or three. You know, he's in his 300s. The assumption with bowling the bouncer the way we're talking about is that it is a bona fide effort ball. It has to be everything you've got, I think. And providing it is, pulling it for 4 or 6 is not easy. This is one thing. If you genuinely mean a bumper and it is everything you've got, not many batsmen are going to whack it. I'm going to say even though it doesn't even matter if you get that quick. Do you know what I mean? Like you talked about Ed Joyce earlier, effort ball bumper designed to be through chin high. He's a top class player, but actually, yeah, bang.
Chris, like you just said, you don't have to be quick. Dan Mousley bowls spin with the keeper up. So this is for the bowlers that have keepers stood up. Yes, you can still bowl the bouncer and it'd be effective. Mousley comes bowling off spin and then we'll give a quick, don't be wrong, it's still 68, 70 mile an hour, but it's this element of surprise that does batters. Simple as that. Like it's
yeah, exactly. That's an example of he's going to be knowing when to bowl it, in tune with the game and stuff. I'm going to use this because it's an easy example, and I probably could find it online. My favourite way to bowl a short ball is how I did in that Metro Bank final. I can't remember who it was. I got out, caught
Donald.
Right, that's an example. I'm not trying to bowl the ball over his head there, so I'm not looking for a catch deep square. Do you know what I mean? I'm looking for a catch just straight up.
Yeah.
Kind of. I think there's a slight switch in attitude that gives you better results. If I bowl that higher and he gets it, probably goes for 6 into that near where that council building is.
Yeah.
Right. Next topic here, which I'm keen to ask you about because we've seen it quite a lot recently, is how England have utilised the short ball recently. So probably, I want to say maybe since the second year of Bazball, perhaps. I know they probably don't like that term. England quite often, if they don't feel like they're getting, I want to say like traditional wickets from looking at top of off, they will just fine leg, deep square leg, deep mid wicket, a square leg in front, and maybe another mid wicket, and just bowl every ball. Not even bounces necessarily, but just every ball is short from like nipple height to head height. What do you think of that?
That doesn't include Jimmy Anderson, does it? I know he's finished now, but that didn't include Jimmy. Jimmy never did that.
No, he didn't.
I question it, and the reason I question it is I'm wondering if they have some sort of stat. I can't see there being a stat about it, but they might have a stat on something to do with short balls and whatever else. But the more skillful bowler, actually, the more skillful bowlers, I took Welksy into that as well. Welksy doesn't do that when he's played for England. He doesn't then go bounces. And I'm wondering if it's maybe that because they've got quicker bowlers, they just go, right, let's just go to that tactic. When actually, you're almost stopping the development of your bowlers if you just do that. Because you've got, like a Gus Atkinson, you've got a Course, who are still able to learn and develop their bowling. But if you get them to just try and bowl bounces all the time, rather than learning different skills, I know the wickets are flat, but they've been flat for years. But still, there's bowlers out there who are still quite successful. And I throw to you again, Chris, that Australia don't do it, and they play across the world on different flat decks at times. So, and they're still successful. So why is that? Why are they successful?
Right, mate, this is $1 million question. I mean, I agree with you. Australia are probably the best bowling attack, I'd say. I think that's fair. Yeah, they go about it in a more orthodox way. I mean, I don't know what motivates England to be. Maybe they only utilise it in the super flat conditions. I don't know, but it's a good point. It's a really good point.
You can't tell me
I'm,
that England. You can't say that England are the only team that play in super flat conditions, but it just seems that England are the only team that will go to that kind of bouncer strategy.
I wonder if it's a little bit to do with the spin as well. Whether if you've got a lion, for example, right now, I'm talking right now, if you've got a lion versus a show of Bashir.
So
right?
I thought you were going to when you said about a lion, I thought you were going to start talking about questions of if there's a lion.
No. So, for example, if your spinner is Nathan Lyon,
Yeah.
right, then it's probably you can operate more in a more orthodox way, knowing that his threat is like elite level of spin threat. You can probably have your seamers operate in a more orthodox fashion. I mean, one thing I'd say, in terms of getting, I'm just talking about in terms of getting me out here as a lower order batter. I genuinely think that at the lower order, you don't need to go. Sorry if you can hear my dog there; he's losing his mind in the background. I'm not sure why. I think that you're more likely to get lower order out with 2 good bouncers and 4 heavy top of off balls. I'd rather face six short balls, I think, and over than 2 good short balls and 4 top of off balls.
I'm just guessing when those short balls are coming.
Yeah, I think it's the surprise. There is that surprise element that you talked about. Even if you're quick, you can still utilize that. At the end of the day, right, batting is a highly skillful task, right? And you're set up there. If you have to make a decision every ball and you don't know what you're going to have to do, from playing with a straight bat to a cross bat, that's challenging. Whereas if you know you can set up to play all cross bat or the other way, all straight bat, that makes your life much simpler. So I feel like you lose an important element of decision making if you all bowl all short.
Yeah.
And it just seems to me at the minute, a lot of it is egos of the people batting, is that they get 6 short balls and they're still trying to horn every ball where all the fielders are, rather than maybe just ducking a few and defending a few. What happens to the game then?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It'd be like, well, I don't know. Yeah, I find that interesting.
So you think that if England had better, like a level of Nathan Lyon type of spinner, that they wouldn't utilise the bouncer project?
I think they'd probably consolidate the other end a bit more with more orthodox bowling. Yeah, I think I think they might, because you've got Lyon's going to chip away at one end almost indefinitely, and then you'd utilise the short ball a little bit, but I don't think you'd necessarily go ridiculous with it. I think you might be a bit more orthodox. Fine leg, deep square, maybe a short leg and a wide mid on. But then you've still got your top of off. You can still have like slip third man and a ring and stuff. This is if you're playing somewhere super flat, knowing that line at the other end is.
I mean, I could understand at times if, let's say, you want to try and get that ball reversing, you want to scuff it up a bit, that you might go to that as an option. But I don't think they do that for that reason, do they? So
yeah,
maybe they find that they've picked up more wickets. Like, it might be a stat, they've picked up more wickets going to that plan than trying to lurk around, trying to hit the top of off. And like you said, without a spin at the level of line, it might be a lot more difficult to just stay traditional with your areas.
Well, I mean, by the way, we are both. We should caveat this. We're We're super pro using your short ball, right? So we are big advocates of it. I'm just interested in this choice. We've actually, hopefully, we've got a guest coming on soon who we can ask this question to, actually, and just say, around that tactic, what's their kind of reasoning. But it seems to me opposition teams around the world are kind of alert to it. I think Gillespie, didn't he, spoke recently that they basically just try and whack it when they bat and then just bowl short when it's flat.
Yeah.
So can we also talk about using the short ball in club cricket? Because we've got a lot of listeners who are toiling away across the country in various Premier Leagues and all sorts of standards. Where do you see the short ball in the club game?
Not used much at all. I think more club cricket batters are more willing to have a little dip at it. I think happy to have a little swipe at it, and I think that puts some bowlers off. Especially some grounds are quite small, aren't they? I think the bowlers can be put off from it, but you still have to try and utilise it some way, shape, or form. I just think that club cricket, because you want to be straighter and bowling at the stumps more, same with your bouncer, it has to be really at the batsman. But it's something that's not done often. I will say there was a guy, I think it was about 2 years ago, known as quite a decent all-rounder in the leagues, in the Birmingham League. We were playing Chris and playing for Moseley, and he came in with that helmet on.
Can you tell me who this is or not?
I don't know his name. I think he's
Alpha. That's Alpha.
I think he moved. I think he was at Leamington. I think, or not Leamington, Stratford. I think he was at, and he moved to. He's now at Nolan Dorridge. I think he might be the club captain. I think.
You're talking. I know who you're talking about. You're talking about Dave Ball, left-hander.
No.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say he moved from my club, Dorridge, to Nolan Dorridge.
No. He was at like Stratford, I think, and then he went to Nolan Dorridge.
Okay.
But he came in with that helmet on, and Uzi, my good friend, who's Moseley captain, is like, "Look, boys, don't bounce him because he's good in the short ball." I went, "He's not got a helmet on, and I'm a pro. I'm gonna hit him in the face because I'm not having that. That's so disrespectful."
Yeah.
And we also had a man down, and one of our players went in the hammy. So it was a slow wicket, but still managed to hit him. Made him put a helmet on.
Wait, in the head?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Why would you bat without a helmet? I find that kind of stuff crazy.
I don't know. Just he doesn't bat with a helmet normally, and I'm going to hit him in the head. So I managed to. He did try and take it on, but hit him. I think he cut his eyebrow. And then helmet on. Thank you very much. It's just got to be straight. I think club cricket, you've got to be at them. Like,
okay,
you hit.
So, right, I was going to say this, right, and I know, people talk about not having stereotypes and stuff like that. In cricket, I'm sorry, but having a bit of a stereotype helps you with your game plan initially. Like a typical keeper, they clip it and they cut it, and they're annoying and they smell, right? That's your typical keeper stereotype. Happy to be proven wrong, but I'm going to go with that until I'm proven. Club cricket, stereotype for me of a club cricket batter, they probably like a little bit of width and they probably cut it okay. And I'm also going to assume most club grounds, like you've said, bowls LBs are the main mode of dismissal. So for me, short ball theoretically goes up in value because ultimately you need to be able to bowl full and hit the stumps or the front pad. But equally, you can't bowl wide because we're going to assume most club batters like a bit of width and they'll cut it. So the bumper, therefore, straight at the ribs, at the neck, at the bonds. No width on it at all because that's that reeks of kind of batters giving themselves a bit of room, doesn't it, and stuff like that. So they're my assumptions. And actually, again, batters prefer a true pitch, don't they, when they play the short ball? So like quite a lot of high level batters would rather face a short ball on something quick and bouncy because they know they can trust it, they can get underneath it. A good short ball on a wicket, a club pitch that maybe isn't as hard, maybe that it's a bit stoppy or too paced. That's hard to score off, especially if you only train once or twice a week.
Yeah,
max. So I'm with you. Huge fan of a short ball in club cricket. What about field for it? A club kind of style field? I mean, is it just the same? Is it orthodox?
I think it's the same. I think I'm just thinking then I do miss the old days of our good old friend Ricky Clark, who would be like, right, man out, deep square, blah, blah, blah. And then pitch it up nice away swinger. But I think it's pretty generic. You do you want to, if you've got pace, even if you're a club player,
Mm.
you don't want to telegraph it. You don't want to let them know, I don't think, straight away. You might, I always like to think like, make the batsman put a man out there. So, all right, pull, like hit me. And if you do, then I'll think about it. But it's got to be a convincing pull. If it's a little top edge, I'm keeping him up. Go on, convince me that you can do it. But it just depends on the batsman, because if they're not someone who's going to look to really take it on, you could go man around the corner, deep square, fine leg, kind of square catching with wicket, and really threaten that batsman as to say, I'm going to rip your head off because you don't like it.
Mm.
But then still bowl a good area at the same time.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? As well, is what the worst case scenario, right? Is you get pulled for 4, you keep your man up at square leg, for example, and you get pulled for 4 again, right? Worst case is 8 runs, or another worst case is you hit out the ground for 6, whatever. But if they then don't get forward quite as much, then you've won that battle, I think. That's the way to frame it, definitely.
Yeah.
And actually, the upsides are they either get caught there and then playing it. Maybe it's just a dot ball, or maybe they don't play it so well, and a ball later you hit them on the shin because they're on the crease. Do you see what I mean? And the upside is just way bigger than the downside for me. But I mean that's for all cricket, to be honest, not just club cricket. But I'm glad that we've said that it should be utilised in club cricket for sure. And even if you don't think you're rapid, it's worth using. Right. Is there anything else before we wrap up? Short ball related?
No, it's no, nothing at all really. I was going to try and reference it to poker for you, Chris, but I don't think I can.
Go on.
Well, it was just I was kind of thinking like, if someone, let's say you chuck in 2, and then the batsman takes it on and hits you 4. You might, all right, let's see if you really got something. I'm gonna go again, and they might call you again, and you're like, all right, I have to think this through now. Then you might just be like, right, man out, and then go for it again, or you actually pitch it up and they freeze, look to play it short, and it's pitched up. Like, all right, got you covered. Now I've got number on you.
See, I love these poker references. The poker references and bowling is so true. So, for example, in poker, you get caught bluffing, right? And you think it's bad. But actually it's not, because when you're all in the next time and you actually have aces, for example, you're going to get that action. It's the same kind of thing. You've got to think about what the bumper and its effect down the line, not just for that instant ball. That's good advice from Keith the River Barker. Anyway, right? We used to play poker on the bus, didn't we, at Warwickshire? Yeah. Sorry, this is not about bouncers. Who would it be? It'd be like us 2, Ambrose, Westwood, Clarkey would play, and Chops probably.
Yeah.
And there was it must have been on a Durham trip. I swear, you literally just kept outdrawing Clarkey, didn't you? He was losing his head. And he just, Keith the River Barker. I'll remember that. That was brilliant fun. And also, it was always Clarkey that you'd get lucky against, wasn't it?
But that's because I knew he was never really sure. He'd keep going, and he was never sure. So I'm just going to keep going with him. I might get him. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. Well, look, brilliant, mate. That was a nice podcast. Hopefully, again, there's lots of value in there. Any questions, fire them through. And don't forget, if you enjoy it, leave us a review. Take it easy, everyone.
Cheers.